Hey everybody, and welcome to another Learn to Digitize video. My name is Sue and I'm a hatch educator. I'm just getting over a cold, so hopefully I don't get all squeaky or manly on you guys, but I'll edit out all the coughing. So today we're going to talk about multi-hooping. A lot of people in the group have been asking questions about it. This video is going to be a quick introduction to the basics of multi-hooping. The first thing we're going to do is go into our built-in designs, the designs that come with hatch. And I picked this beautiful floral embroidery, and you can see the size and you can see all the color changes and everything. And we are going to multi-hoop this one. And in this video, we're just going to go over the basics. The next videos, when I get a chance to make them, I'll show you guys actually how to stitch them. So here we have our pretty design. Two things you need to do first. The first thing is you need to go into software settings, and we're going to go into embroidery settings, and we're going to go all the way over here to multi-hooping, and we're going to add registration marks on output. Now the margin is the distance from the sewing area of your hoop. And you may have to play around with this, but we're going to put it right in the middle because I think that's going to work just fine. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is pick your hoop. So let's show hoop, and that's not the right one. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to pick my 100 by 100, which is the 4 by 4 hoop, show, and we want to do manual. Not that it matters, because when you go into multi-hooping, all of the automatic centering turns off, but I just do it out of habit, and I did it, and there it is. So that's our hoop, and you can see it's close, but it's not quite going to fit in. So let's go to the multi-hooping, and let's zoom out a little bit and zoom back in, or you can press 0 to cover it. So the hoops here, this is the one that we have, and they're color coded. So it's not a bit tricky, but you do have to pay attention. We're going to do it in the most simple fashion, but you do have to work at it a little bit to get it right. So the hooping sequence, it'll tell you the numbers of the hoops, and you'll be able to tell the different hoopings. So, okay, basically when you start this, you want your hoop to cover the biggest object. Now we're so close on this one, it's not going to work. But if you're starting to place your hoops, and there's a lot of tips and tricks about this, but if you're placing your hoops on another design that's much larger than this, your first one generally goes on your largest object. That is your starting point for it. Now, the other thing that is important to notice, the parts that are covered by this hoop are in green, and the parts that are not covered are in black. So in our first hooping, this is what's going to stitch, and we have to add more hoopings because everything else is black. So the couple ways you can do it, there's shortcuts. We're just going to add a hoop. Now it looks like it replaced it, but there's actually 2 hoops here. It just put it exactly over. Now the trick to this, and there are a couple of tricks, you want to move it around so it covers. Now the hoops need to be overlapping, but you want to move the hoops around so that everything is covered and it's overlapped. So I wanted to, now if you move it around and you try to do this, you can see it's excluding more. So then I need to go up. And that covers everything I can see, so I can do the whole thing in 2 hoopings. Now there are shortcuts if you're doing a really big thing. Mine isn't that big, so it was easy to do. You can add 4 hoops around, or you can add 8 hoops around. If you need to split a design, which is really cool, kind of like the knife tool, you can digitize the splitting guide, and you can tell Hatch where you want to split the design. And for this one, we don't have to, and we're going to click on Calculate Hoopings. The current layout of hoop positions will result in 2 hoopings. All objects in the design are covered by hoops. Hey, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. So you add hoops, you move them around, you try to get everything covered, but the biggest trick to it is, and the general rules to it, is that you want to make sure your hoop positions overlap for sure. And you want to keep your hoop order as close as you can to the resequence order. So you have to be kind of planning it out a little bit so those two things are closest, and it will help you out quite a bit. Now, what I would do for this one, oh, and also another hint is that this works best with native EMB files. If it'll, of course, work with machine files, but it'll work best. It's easier for Hatch to do it with a native EMB file. So now that we've done this, we've got our two hoops. Everything's lovely and green, so we know that it's all covered. What do you do now? Well, I would save this as a new EMB file. So File, Save Design, because we always want to save our EMBs no matter what, because you never know if you want to go back and change something, you need the EMB file for that. Once we've saved it, I'm not going to do it, but once we've saved it, we want to go to Export Design because we want to send this to our embroidery machine as a stitch file. So click on Export Design, and we're going to call it, and I'm going to put it right on my desktop right here so we can look at it afterwards, and we'll call it the same thing because it doesn't matter. Let's do save, and then it's going to calculate it out. How cool is that so far? And this is the important screen. Once you export it, this tells you exactly what's going on, and it's really cool, and it's not that hard to do. It's really cool. So this is our first hooping, and this is our second hoop position. Sorry, this is a sequence, and this is the hoop position. So the hooping sequence, this is the one you're going to stitch out first. And if you notice here, right along here, this is kind of some underlay that kind of attaches everything. So this is going to stitch first, and this is going to stitch second. These are the hoop positions. So we can save selected. So we need to save that as one file, and that is a second file, and we're going to be sending it to our machines as separate stitch files. It's not all one file because we've split it. We've multi-hooped it. So we want to, oh, another thing, you can show all hoops, or you can save all. So let's save all, and it'll save it in the same spot where you saved your original. So I put it on my desktop, and I'm quite happy with that. So let's click OK for that. And you can zoom in, zoom out, do a few other things. Let's close it for now. And there we go. And we're back in. And my computer's thinking really hard about something today. Sorry, computer. And there we have it there. We can go back to select. So let's look at the files separately. And this is what you'll be sending to your machine. So let's go to Open Design. And it's right on my desktop. Here's the first one. And if you notice, it's marked floral_4, which is the original name, -1 and -2. And that also helps you keep track of the order of how you're sending it to your machine. So let's have a look at this guy here. So this is part 1, and it shows my hoop. These are the registration marks, so it helps you line up. It may take a little bit of practice to do that. And let's do the other one, File, Open Designer, and let's look at number 2. And that is what you're sending to your machine. Those are the registration marks. Line it all up, stitch away. And that works out really well. And that is the basics of multi-hooping. I would advise everyone to look in their manual under Help and under multi-hooping. It can get complicated. It doesn't have to be. It depends on what you're doing. It can get complicated, and they have a lot of tips and tricks, and they lay it out for you perfectly, and it'll help you understand what you're doing. So kind of play around with it. Try to stick with your resequence. Make sure your hoops are overlapped, and that is the basics of multi-hooping here inside Hatch Embroidery Software. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.